this is Sherry. It's great to have you here. In this Free Friday webinar, we're going to be looking at feeling bitchy and overwhelmed. So today's title is What is Up with Me? I'm so bitchy and feeling overwhelmed. Do you cringe when one more person approaches you to ask you for something? Do you feel like everyone wants something from you and it's all too much? Do you find yourself not liking your kids, your partner, your world? In this conversation, we will look more closely at what's going on and how to live with more peace and ease.
I'd like to start the conversation to check in with what you make about what looks like a trend to me. It looks like a trend in the world these days that, to me, I live in a city of 5 million, 4 or 5 million people. So all I have to do is get on the freeway, and I feel like I get demonstrations every single day how the capacity for I'll say the capacity for even going the speed limit is gone.
Mhm.
It is absolutely gone. And truly in 6 or 8 lanes of traffic, it looks people tend to drive. I'll have to say, I see some drivers that it looks like they really feel like they're the only car on the road. I mean, I just got off the freeway and it was like some of these cars that would I have to reflect and go, what's the hurry? You know? What's their hurry? What are they up to? What do they need to get to that they would, I'll say, potentially harm a lot of people and on that much traffic doing that kind of driving? And I see it every single day. So, like, kind of just share, and we spoke a little bit a minute ago, but I'd love for you to restate if what do you make of this kind of current trend that you're noticing, whether it's in yourself or in the world? What do you make of it? And you can just speak freely if you like.
Friendships have changed a lot, even long-standing friendships and especially work relationships. I've since retired, but there's been huge changes in like the friendship and the community friendships that I had.
And so when that changes, are you saying the impact of those changes
Yes.
show up how for you and how you feel?
No gatherings, no going out, for lunches, not hearing about their children or families or the disconnect, I guess.
And what do you make of to kind of come back about what do you make of with that change? How are you seeing it impact you? What's coming? What's the effect of those changes on you?
Uh, Loneliness is part of it. I mean, I've never considered myself a lonely person. I've always had a group of friends and family around, and now I don't. So I feel like I don't dwell on this,
No,
but I
no,
think it's
no,
just
but
being a solo traveler as I'm aging, you know, without, thinking if there was an emergency, who would I call? Well, I can't call my friend 3 states away,
oh,
or
true,
my family's 4 states away. So,
true, and that even not having built-in community versus cultivating community. You know what I mean? That's a shift too, to
oh,
actively cultivating community versus, you know, having built in, which
that's
is
true.
a new place to sit when it just kind of brings that to your awareness, like, oh, that's a great, thank you, thank you. Anybody else? What do you make of this? What appears to be a trend? I know it all lives in our own mind, but what do you make of it?
It's really basic, Sherry, but people have a lot of thinking going on. I think that's what it all comes down to.
Tell me how it appears that that's impacting what's going on.
I think that people are very reactive to their thinking. And I, I'm familiar with the traffic in Houston, and I gotta get there. These people are in my way. And it kind of creates an energy and then I think people just like in their cars, they feed on it, and they 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 don't realize, and I know I'm a longtime Sherry student here, but they don't realize that they can have a choice, right? Whatever's going on in that other car, whatever that other person is doing, if they're a bad driver or whatever, like it's not, it's like it's outside of them, but they think that it's all inside of them as far as their reactions go.
Exactly. Exactly. People are reactive to their thinking. People, I would say the royal we, me too, all of us. Human beings are very susceptible to believing what comes into their mind. Very susceptible to what comes into their mind. And susceptible and also reactive, because when we're saying susceptible, it have our thinking, our reaction, and the believability happens so fast. It's faster than those. I'm thinking faster than that white Mustang that almost blew me off the freeway. Did it is so fast. You don't realize you're in a reaction, and you really don't even realize how fast it happens. What you're reacting to, and to that point about feeling bitchy and overwhelmed, those emotions come from reactivity to what it looks like it's the outside world, but we are reactive to what our mind is making up, even if we don't know what our mind is making up. So I say that in a way of of showing how fast we can fill our minds with concerns. And when like if this is a cavity and something happens and our mind gets busy, it kind of fills that whole cavity with thought. Okay, so I love the example about community changing, because that was such a I think such an impact on so many people, that what once was post COVID is game on. Totally new system. I feel like we're building from the ground up. The systems of, I don't know, everything from community to customer service. It's all getting rebuilt. It's not what it once was. So in that place where we have reactivity, or our head fills with thought about what's occurring in front of us, I want you to kind of see that part of what churns and keeps this space getting fuller and fuller and fuller to the point of where you feel overwhelmed. It's real helpful to see that the state of overwhelm is when you have so much congestion in your mind. That's the sole source of overwhelm. You can have a million appointments in a day, or you could have no appointments in a day. And depending on how how congested your head is about your day, is going to be where the overwhelm comes from. Doesn't come from anywhere else. Because have you noticed there are people in the world that, just skate through the day? Things are coming at them almost like, things are just coming at them all day long. They're very fast to respond, and they just move. I'll say a lot of times I think about it like emergency room people, you know? They kind of align with the nature of an emergency room, feed off that adrenaline, click, 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 The rest of us are one instant in the emergency room, and it takes us years to recover. Like, what was that? So to look at that, the source of bitchiness is overwhelm, is a very congested and full mind. Okay. Now, to kind of look at how fast this system goes into action and multiplies thinking faster than rabbits, so to speak, that it occurred to me, like, with this bitchy and overwhelm, we get all this thinking, and it's like, what are we getting this thinking about? And I'd love for you to kind of reflect about what comes to mind for you when all of that stuff starts, whether it is coping with a bad mood, or dealing with the parts that are not so welcome that come toward you in life, or you're getting your preferences met, or just being in a low mood. Tell me what concerns come to mind when you find yourself with a congested mind, if you reflect on that. One of the ones that comes to mind for me as kind of an umbrella is we get these thoughts that we react to, and it looks to me like the greatest part of the combustibility of that thinking, whether it's conscious or not, are the consequences of that thought. Okay? The consequences. Like me going down the freeway, my mind gets busy because it's like, if that car flips, there are kids in these cars on this freeway and they could be hurt. You see what I mean? And in my mind, that's just wrong. That's just where my head goes. And so I noticed that a lot of that congestion and overwhelm comes not from the single thought of that's a crazy driver, but how fast that thought gets compounded as a free agent in your head. But how can we become conscious of what it's up to? So say even changes in your community. If you were going to just guess, what does the mind make up if it looks into changes in community? What does that make up? If there was going to be a consequence to your change in your community, what would that be? Or a consequence to not getting your preferences met? Or a consequence of an uninvited happening in your life?
Say the question again.
It's like if you kind of think into uh some of the thinking that occurs to you that really gets your mind real busy.
Mhm.
And then it's like, okay, if you have some topics that are that get your mind real busy, it's interesting to look at to see if it gets busier and busier and busier because if we don't real I think this is a big part of it. It's like we really perceive consequences that have played off a thought. For instance, like the smaller my family gets, the more certain I'm going to be a lonely old lady all by myself, and nobody's going to know I'm dead for 3 days. You know what I mean? What do I talk about? 3 days, maybe 3 weeks, who knows? But you see how that would be a consequence of my mind makes, it just runs with that. The smaller family gets, the less people you're on the radar of, and it's a lonely world out there. You're going to be rotted on the floor before somebody finds you. Who knows? But you see how it can kind of be like a domino and go all the way to consequences? Kind of like the white Mustang going, oh my God, it's going to flip out and it's going to stop this entire traffic and it's going to hurt a lot of people. None of that is happening. None of that is happening in the moment. All is well in the moment, but the mind escalates and, to me, goes to consequences. And that's where the overwhelm and stress come. Say in the workplace, in the workplace, you look over there and somebody else has walked in and they're putting something else on your desk. Now, depending on what you think about that, we know that's up for grabs. Everything from, oh, really? Oh, really? It sat on your desk for a week and now it's hot for me? No, you can, you see, and if I don't do it, I'm going to lose my job. If I don't do it, if I lose my job, my kids don't go to college and I don't retire. I mean, you see how it can snowball?
Is it fearful thinking? I don't know.
Say that again, please.
Is it called fearful thinking?
Oh, well, I think it's exactly seeing it's really the leverage comes when you start to see you're believing what your mind's making up.
Mm.
That's where the leverage is. The real leverage is in becoming very aware you don't have to believe what you think. That's where the leverage is. You don't have to believe everything because our mind is a manufacturing plant of thoughts and fears and everything. It's just a manufacturing plant of minutia that runs through your head. And the ones you really see, it's a free agent. It's just manufacturing thinking all the time. You the leverage is in starting to notice there is nothing in the world that says I have to believe everything I think. Does that look true? You don't have to believe everything you think. You can drink the Kool-Aid on it all day long if you want to. If you want to, but does that I'd love for anybody to kind of share if that how that impacts you that you could have a choice about what you believe and what you don't believe about what comes into your mind.
I guess about what you believe and not believe, but as far as it coming in or out, I always have to ask myself, am I hungry? Am I tired? Because a lot of times, I mean, oatmeal can play some really nasty tricks on my brain, and I know that. So I don't eat it before I go to bed. But
Interesting.
just
Interesting.
like I was telling you the other day, like I was so excited my when I bought my vegetables and then I brought them home and I cooked them and then I blamed them for ruining dinner because I guess of the way I cooked it and like, well, they must have been out of season. So I'm like totally blaming these poor little souls, and I'm like, oh, but my brain just got so off track with that. And I'm like, why am I blaming the vegetables? I cooked them like they were fine at the store.
Noticing that it's a wild card what your brain is going to attach to your well-being. It's a wild card what's even going to pop into your head. There is no possible way anybody can predict what their next thought will be.
No, and I think too, a lot of it has cleared up, going through all this, the divorce process and everything. A lot of my brain space has cleared up. So now all this little gibberish stuff is starting to funnel in, I think, because I am having more just random thoughts where all those had totally gone away.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And that happens so often when we really move and engage with solving a problem. We can
mhm.
generate, first of all, our mind gets real active when we see a problem. Then it gets even more congested when we're trying to solve the problem. And then it's like as we start to engage and the situation gets resolved, it's such a good thing to see that if the mind's going to look for something else to make thinking about.
Mhm.
You see, and then I mean, like the big ticket stuff that comes up that really can be life changing, and it says that can really fill your mind with a lot of thinking, and that goes away, and you think you're going to get a break from your own mind, and then it fixates on something benign like vegetables. You know what I mean? It's just what the mind
Yeah.
does. It's just what the mind does, and that's the leverage. So, like, okay, we can get on board and understand what is causing our overwhelm, what's causing our stress, what's causing that feeling of being maxed out, and also what's causing I'll say participates in how often we hit low moods and how often we don't. If our mind is congested and filled with, I'll say, I mean, you name it. It doesn't matter what it's congested with. But if you have a pattern of always solving problems, that if it doesn't have a problem to solve, it's going to find one. If if you're if the mind is kind of attaching to things need to be different for me to be okay, it keeps working to try to get things in place so you can feel okay. And then they get in place, and then it attaches your happiness to something else. It'll be the neighbor's dog barking, or it'll be the number on the scale, or it'll be, something that it can get your attention on that will get your mind congested too. And see, all of this really, if the more we understand this system, the less we're going to experience overwhelm and bitchiness, because it's not going to take us over as much. It won't take us over as much. We won't, I'll say, once we really start to understand we have the capacity to believe what we think, and we also have the capacity to let thoughts go by. Does that look true to everybody? You have the capacity for both. And that's real good to see. It's like the mind may want to come back and hang on to something, but you really do. If you had to hit your brakes on the car, say your mind is really fixated on a particular topic. If you had to hit the brakes on the car, you're not stuck still thinking about that. You go to the present moment, and your mind goes to hitting the brakes on the car and not making contact with the other car. So we do have a capacity to take our mind off of these topics. We do have the capacity. We're not victimized by them. So we do have leverage how much of those we think into. And that's very helpful to see. It's very, very helpful to see, because it can feel like we're powerless over our thinking. You can really feel like that. Guaranteed it can feel like that, but that doesn't make it true. Anybody come to mind? Anybody have something on their mind about what we've talked about so far you'd like to speak about?
I have such a big project right now in my life that I just feel consumed by it. I ended up, I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I ended up here during the pandemic. It was supposed to be like just a place I would live maybe for a year, go back to my headquarters, and then go back out. And I've decided I need to move back to Texas, which is where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in a relatively small 1,100 square foot condo in Atlanta. It's not really that complicated, but just even thinking about how I'm going to process this move and what I'm going to do, and the expectations of other people of me, that this is something simple to do. So I am just living in like a goldfish bowl of overwhelm right now. Everywhere I look, there's stuff and paper clips, and so I just had a little talk with myself yesterday and said, you've got to let this be more natural. This isn't my job anymore. I'm retired. And so I always had work. My work and my workplace here in Atlanta was always what I could, maneuver around and deal with. But now it's a whole different thing. So I'm just in like a goldfish bowl of chaos, I feel, which is why I reacted to the topic of your lecture.
No, totally, because you can see how you get your mind gets real busy at the thought of relocating. You see what I mean? It's not neutral right now. It's not neutral. I can sense it in how you're saying it. It's like all of a sudden here comes just a shit show of, like you said, paper clips, expectations, everything's got to be in a box. I can just, see how all of that, I'm guessing I'm reciting how it feels in your head,
Well, how do I move as a minimalist, when I've got all this stuff to deal with? So,
Exactly.
I think dealing with stuff is a huge American problem. I mean, it's probably a global problem, but it's really weighing me down.
Well, and I'll have to say it's not the stuff that's wearing you down. It's not just, it's never the stuff, because if it was just stuff, that's why dumpsters were invented.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be completely neutral and go, oh,
Right.
next. Okay. So, but the congestion is, it's like even starting to notice, what if you took expectation off the table about this move?
Mm-hmm.
So when you kind of look, I think expectation and consequences are the two big points I wanted to play with here. It's like, and to really notice the role that expectation is playing in filling your and congesting your head. And just in what you mentioned, it wasn't just expectations you have for you. You were even in your mind were generating expectations that other people are caring about you.
Right. Yes.
Do you know that's true?
Do I know that the concept is true or that the
No. Do you know that the other people have expectations on you?
there are some there, but they're actually very light ones.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. They're not huge. I
No.
have spent most of my career working all over the world. So people are used to me living in Africa or Germany or, with this organization or that organization. It was my field.
Uh-huh.
That's why and I had to come back here and all my stuff came back to me.
Uh-huh.
Wedding china, crystal. I haven't been married for a long time. So
And so it's,
boxes that haven't been opened for 25 years.
yeah, yeah. And so in your own mind, what's that make up about you?
I don't know anymore. Um,
Exactly. Exactly. So that part where it's like it's even if people do have expectations on us, that has nothing to do with me.
mhm.
What they think about me and where I should be and how I should do it, it takes a while to fill those shoes, but but what they think and what they expect, that's not my prescription to fill. you know, so that their expectations get met. But what more importantly is when we think it's coming from them, when it's coming from my own mind. Does that ring true that you have expectations on yourself, or you have expectations on how this move should go, or you have expectations on uh what do you have expectations on about the move?
So one thing I've known for a long time, I never wanted to live in Atlanta. I have been in and out of Atlanta my entire career because it's partly where I was stationed. Um, and um, and I find myself stuck here and I'm thinking, I'm intelligent. I could get out. And going back to Texas, I'm not going back to Houston, but probably Austin area. It's familiar. I have friends there. I have family nearby. It's a good thing to do. And now I'm not stuck in neutral. I'm stuck in like the La Brea tar pit right now, I think. And so it's just interesting that for literally all these years, I've been saying, I will never live here.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And do
And I
you
have friends here. It's a great neighborhood that I live in, but the Deep South is not my culture at
Mhm.
all.
So even the expectation that you're a smart woman, how am I finding myself here?
Yeah. Thank you. Can I write down that you said I'm smart? No,
Of course.
actually, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that it right there is enough to fill your entire mind with um oh Lord, novels, just all that. How did I let this happen? What's this mean about me? How do I get out of this? Isn't where I want to be. Now, what I want you to really see that all of that indulging that
Mhm,
is
mhm.
what creates the tar that you're stuck.
Yes. Yes.
To really see that it's not it's the burden of a
Mhm.
filled mind that immobilizes all of us.
I'm quoting you on that. Exactly.
That's where overwhelm comes from. That's where stress comes from. That's
Mhm.
where moods. We will experience many more low moods. I kind of see it as a, a your state of being gets so weighted down
Mm.
to a full mind. It's just like oh my God, it's just like putting sandbags on a hot air balloon. It's going to bring it down. You cannot lift off. So in that place of okay, you're there,
Mhm.
you're there. So what? You're there.
Oh, mhm.
You know, you're there. Now, if you were going to consider the next step, the very simple, easy, obvious next step, what does that look like? Not 18 steps, not 18 steps, and not the consequence of if it doesn't happen and you're stuck there the rest of your life. I don't see where that could fill the mind too. If I get stuck here the rest of
Yes. Yeah, I'm not that far gone yet.
good,
Uh,
good, good, good. No, no. I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying that's how dire our mind can go when it gets
Mhm.
full. It makes
Well,
determinations.
yesterday evening, I had to go run an errand and I came back and I simply looked at my kitchen counter. I've always kept a pretty neat house. And I just looked at my kitchen counter and I'm thinking, how did I get this way? This is not my natural way of being. And then my other mind kind of clicked in and it said, your natural way of being could take over if you let it. Like I'm kind of locked down, like, you know, so
Listen, listen to your wisdom because that is absolutely true. If we don't get bound, if we don't get bound by just reflecting on what our mind is selling us, you know, like whatever it might be, if we can get out of thought, if we can
Mhm,
get out from underneath it, it's almost like you can pick your head up. It's like, wait a minute, this is a completely neutral moment for all of us.
mhm.
It is a completely neutral moment until we um, color it with something. Potential, possibility, opportunity, invitation to engage, all of that stuff is available in every single moment, except when I'll say, heavy headed, burdened down, and the believability, I don't know how to do this. The believability of it's all going to be too much. Believability, it's never going to change. You see how that kind of minutia starts around something we're not in agreement with. Yeah, totally. I love what your wisdom told you because it's like, if you didn't get overly concerned about what's on the counter, you go to the next thing. You go to the next thing.
Mhm.
Orienting to possibility all the time. Like you said, you lived all over the world. And it isn't even around logic so much, but it's not around logic because we all are highly capable individuals that can do. I bet damn well anything we've ever put our mind on, it's happened. If it was up to us and showing up to make it happen, we made it. We showed up. I don't know if it happened, but we know we put everything behind it that we were drawn to do to make it happen. So you're not lacking in capacity. Does that does that feel true or not?
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
I'm about to turn 72. I don't think it's going to get any easier as I get older. I did find, these things a little easier when I was younger, but it was a whole different thing. So I've got my aging crucifix.
That's so true. That is so
Mhm.
true. That's another topic where at
If
every
not now, when,
well,
do I change?
but I think too, our society has a lot of thinking about limiting. How do you put it? Um, Limiting capacities with age.
Mhm. Right.
We buy into that. Some people don't buy into it. Being reactive to our thinking, it's like I don't know what it's like to be 80. I'm not there yet, But
Mhm.
I can see how easily that our culture has a collective thinking that capacity is going to dwindle and this and my world's going to get smaller. But that's not, we don't know if that's true or not.
The best thing for me about getting older is the invisibility. Like nobody's really paying attention to what I'm doing.
My goodness. You can get away with murder. What do you mean?
I, I don't know if anyone could prepare a younger person for this part, but
But I just, to come back to that place about even the idea of aging, you can see how much thought get,
Mhm.
and then thought and concern and consequences and what ifs and how's that going to work out, and none of it's happening right now. None of it. But we'll live in overwhelm. We will completely stall out, take no action.
Mhm.
I think that's a sign of our culture. Like, gosh, how many streaming services do we need for people to binge? There's more stuff out there to binge and to get immobilized over than ever. And I have nothing against binging. I think it's a great way to reset and clear your mind too.
Mhm.
Great way to reset your mind. Watch a movie, listen to a piece of music, take a walk. Anything that helps you clear your mind to really feel the congestion up, lightening up. That's where we kind of have to look at the culprit if we want things to be different.
Mhm.
We have to understand what our mind is up to and my relationship to what it's serving.
Mhm.
That's where, again, we talk about the moods. And if in that place of knowing that all human beings have moods,
Mhm.
does that, I don't know anybody who's consistently in one mood. If y'all know them, they got to be an enlightened being. I don't even know
Or
about.
they're in assisted living.
Or they're medicated.
Or, yeah, or they live in Colorado.
But that place about if moods, knowing that every human being is going to have fluctuating moods. Every human being is in a state of fluctuating moods, and if our mind didn't get active about our moods, they would they would they would move on sooner. Now, when we get a whole lot of thinking, our mood is going to drop, and then we even pile more thinking about how can I get out of this mood. Then you get more stress because you can't make it move. It's like, well, it's like an ink stain. The more you scrub it, the more it grows. The more you worry about your mood, the bigger it gets. It's because it will move on its own if you leave it alone. If you leave it alone. But of course, that mind that's seeking to find a problem, well, it'll make being in a bad mood a problem. It'll be, gosh, you don't get your to-do list done. It can make that a problem. Who says you need to get your to-do list done? I don't know. So in that if you want to live in a better feeling, I'll say a better feeling than being at the affect of all the booga booga your mind can generate by what we are making up about this moment, moving, not moving, um, gosh, anything, anything. I mean, it's just anything that we can start to see that our mind can be very oriented to hooking your happiness to solving a problem, hooking your happiness to an unwanted event. And so every time those things, if we believe the thinking that everything that our mind tells us, every report card our mind gives us about how we're showing up in the world, if we take that seriously, our mind fills up and gets very congested with even more thinking, more report cards, more how am I doing, more what kind of person am I? I mean, oh my God, this is a bad situation. It's going to last forever. It's never going to change. You see, all that is thought building and compounding on itself when none of it is happening. And the more you see that, it's an option to believe it or not believe it, or even simpler, going, is it happening right now? You know, am I, it was always mine too, that I always thought was so much funny. It's like, when my mom wanted to go to the hell realms, it would go to me, Jean, the tea cart lady at Luby's, and having to wear a hairnet and living under a bridge, you know? So it's like, when if you don't know that that is all BS, it's not happening right now, you can suffer a lot. But it comes back to that real point that you can believe what your mind is serving up, or you can check in with real time. Not with what you're making up about real time, but checking up that you're good. Right now you're good. Right now you're good. It's the same thing. You don't have to believe your perceptions of it, because any situation, because there are what, 7.5, 8 billion people on the planet. There's 7.5 or 8 billion perceptions of anything. None are the same. None. Maybe you share a little bit of one, but it's not never like a fingerprint. It's never exactly the same. So, in the last few minutes we have before we wrap up, any other questions or anything that you heard that you feel like you'd like some more explanation on, or even that it helps you reflect on your role in experiencing stress and overwhelm, or even bitchiness? Or anything else? Anything else that you have a question about? So in wrapping up, it's like, here are some points to consider. Everybody has moods. Forget the idea that you should never be in a fluctuating state of being. Okay? I kind of find it absolutely a miracle that two people in the same room with a fluctuating state of being, how you ever find a place to even connect. That's a miracle in my mind, because everybody's a moving target. You know what I mean? Their mind is full, their mind is empty. They feel connected when their mind is empty. They feel like, leave me the heck alone when my mind is full. You know, how does anybody ever connect and really make contact with another person? So that place, moods are normal. You don't have to fix them. They will change on their own. No mood is a tattoo. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to live with you forever. It's going to change. The parts of life that come toward you that are not welcome, I'll say you can question your perceptions about it. You don't need to believe everything, because typically if you don't like it, there's something fear related to it. What's this mean to me? What's this mean to my world? There's going to be something, the mind predetermines the consequence, like we talked about. And preferences, if you get really out of sorts because your preferences aren't being met, you still can find a peaceful place inside, knowing that that's where peace resides. It's not in getting your preferences met. It's great if you do, but the peace is not going to come from having your preferences met. That's a very fundamental piece to understand. Your peace is never attached to anything outside of you. It can always be a choice. And within yourself, when you feel like you're maxed out and overwhelmed, I really invite you to consider what would help you empty all the concerns you have in your mind. Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's hugging a puppy dog. Well, who knows? Stacking business cards. I don't know, anything. Whatever you can be drawn to that would allow you to empty your mind, to just give some freer space. Kind of like decluttering. You know how good you feel when you declutter? You feel like you've got so much space to expand into. That's the same thing when you allow yourself to empty your mind or free your mind or put your attention on something else. It's a real simple way of doing it. Just put your attention on something else. How fun. How fun to get to spend this time with you guys. Thank you. It's such a pleasure. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I hope you heard a tidbit that will come to mind when the heat gets up, and I'll say your experience of life heat gets up, you know. When you think you don't have a choice, I hope something goes, well, maybe I do. Maybe I do. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a pleasure. We'll be doing this again next month. So I hope you'll find time on your calendar and come join.
It was great to have you here. I hope you heard some points that will support you in becoming more aware and living with greater ease. That's really my mission in my work, is to support you in living with less struggle and to expand your experience of life with effortless joy, with no agenda, no plan, no to-do list. If you'd like to connect and explore getting individual support, please reach out to me at sherryray.com. I'd love to connect with you and have a conversation. Thanks again. Look forward to meeting you on the next webinar.